Howdy folks, welcome to Bullish on Farming. Today's January 30th. We got a beautiful winter afternoon. Snow looks like it's falling in slow motion. And we got about 2 to 2.5 feet of snow out here. Bale grazing program's been going great. Slow start to the first half of January, milder temperatures between Christmas and mid-Jan, but what can you do? We did our best. We had our cattle on and off the field, playing that game with the weather. Whenever it was frozen, we had them on. Whenever things were thawing out, we'd take them off. But now we're on for good. And you can see our bull's up to its knees out there in snow. When you have this much snow, you don't have to worry so much when the temperature starts to flirt with zero again. Like today, for instance, okay? I woke up, it was minus 15. Right now, as I make this video, it's 0 degrees. So, although we got 0 degrees for the afternoon, it's going back to minuses tonight, we got all this snow that's insulating the ground. So the frozen ground is insulated by the layers of snow. And in the layers of snow, you might have an ice layer at the bottom, or you might just have compact snow and then powder on top. But, either way, you got layers. And when you're dealing with layers, you have more forgiveness with the temperatures when keeping your cattle on the land. So we don't have to worry about any poaching or punching up on the ground because, as you can see, we got a solid layer of snow around this bale. And, the first 1/5, maybe a bit more of the bale is covered by snow. So, it's kind of nice having the bales already out here because all I got to do is move a wire. And we use our electric fencing. It's the poly braid wire. You can see some red tape on it there. Fence posts. And just like mob grazing, we move the cattle to sections. And I give them 4 bales a day for this group. And just for general awareness, it's about 20 cows in here. 5 or 6 steers and 2 calves still on the hip, late calves yet to be weaned. And we calve in May. So, these cows are all pregnant, heading into their 3rd trimester. And we're keeping them active. We're keeping them clean. They have to move for their feed. We got the water trough all the way back at the barn. And they still commute back there because they know that the water's been there since the beginning. But mostly, the cattle just eat snow, and that takes up most of their water intake. I've actually, cover crop grazed cattle, grazed cover crops through the winter time, and I'd have a big old water out there, like a 1,000-gallon water tub, and I'd fill it like once a week for 250 head. And so, after that experience, I never really started worrying about water again. Here in Canada, we have the luxury of snow. It's a water source. And, I got a steer right there eating the snow. You can see it flicking it right in front of the speckled. But anyways, don't got to convince you of anything. If you have cows and you have snow, you know that they eat it. And it's sufficient enough to supply their water needs. Every single animal that's in the wilderness right now is doing it. So why wouldn't cattle that have evolved over, thousands of years, I don't know, probably even more than that, why wouldn't they be able to survive through the wintertime by eating snow? That's exactly what that steer's doing there. And so, when you're looking to keep your animals on the land and moving your animals with a grazing mentality, that is to say, integrating a foraging lifestyle that is reflected in nature of the species that you're raising. So cows, they were moving across vast landscape, and, they would consume, feed in one area and move on. And they need to do that because they're large animals. So once you confine them, you're playing a whole different game. You're working in confined settings with animals that can poop up to 40 pounds a day and, you know, consume much more feed than that. So these animals are designed to keep moving, and that's what we like to mimic in our farm practices here. And that is completely in line with regenerative techniques. You know, it's all already designed, folks. You know, the cattle fertilize the land if you work with them properly. And, you know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with conventional grazing, but the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? You get more grazing days when you mob graze, and when you give your pastures proper rest periods, you have more pasture year round. You can extend your grazing season, and you can even stockpile feed to graze during times that you typically weren't grazing. Not to mention, you could build, you know, your pasture quality and have so much vegetation above the soil that you start to create a carbon armor that protects your soil from the harsh exposure to the elements, which includes the cattle's hooves. And that's how you get to grazing through wet months. And, you know, because of the mild temperatures, I want to mention that, you know, watching out for cough and respiratory signs of respiratory infection is important at this time. You know, it's usually more of a problem in barns when, you know, all the manure is thawing out and the bacteria comes out to play. But in a setting like this, where the cattle are moving and their bedding is the most recently bales they consumed the previous day, you know, they're getting fresh bedding daily or every 2 days. And they're also moving to fresh sections that haven't had any cattle impact for a long period of time. And not to mention, with all this snow over top, you got a nice clean layer that, you know, separates a lot of the bacteria from the ground to the animals. So, you know, when you're in sub-zero temperatures, you don't really got to worry about it. But when you're getting those milder temperatures, that's when, you know, things are thawing and bacteria becomes more active. And that's where it's even more important to keep your cattle moving. And, you know, the classic thing is to keep dry bedding and the cattle with clean, fresh air. But that's all integrated into this program. We don't really have to try and do that. Our hay bales, our feed, and bedding. And so we don't buy stockpile straw for the winter time. We do have some because it's smart to have, you know, inventory of straw to use it when you need it for unforeseen circumstances, or those just wet, mild periods where the cattle can't be out in the field if your pastures aren't up to that point yet. But, you know, we've substantially reduced the amount of straw that we need through the winter time by doing a practice like this. And I've said it before, all I do is move an electric wire, cut twine off the bales, and the cows move themselves. And then all the fertilization work is done by them, and the feed is taken care of, and their quality of life is taken care of because they're out in a natural setting, how nature has designed them to live. And so, you know, they have everything they need to thrive. And so, you know, with the mild temperatures, you might hear some of the cows having a mild cough. But really what you're looking out for signs of issues is a repeated cough. So, you know, 1 cough, 2 cough back to back, maybe 3. And I would say that's definitely time to take the temperature of the cow, see where it's at. And, you know, if it's a cow that has a history of doing it, then it's one you might want to consider calling out of the group because, you know, the more they have respiratory issues, the more likely it is to return. But, you know, no worries with that. Usually it is something that does happen, and, you know, you can never be so sure. But I was really, in the first half of January, because it was so mild, I was looking out for it. And, you know, some of the cattle, they have that, you know, 1 cough, shallow cough, which is fine, but nothing raspy, nothing repetitive. Nothing that's really shown any reason for concern as of yet. And so, yeah, you know, life is good here on the farm with the animals. Home farm's doing great. We got 3 more cows, and so the herd is growing. And we got Herefords on the other farm, and we run pretty much all Angus here. And so, yeah, folks, I think I'm going to cap this one off. Thanks for stopping by. God bless you all. We'll see you on the next one.